Hello and welcome. It's the 2nd of January 2018. Let's go over some hockey games, the IIHF for later today, as well as the National Hockey League for tomorrow. Currently, I wish this game was on TSN, but it's not. I can understand it's the losers game. Kazakhstan leading Denmark 2-1. So my no goals bet will be a loser. And Kazakhstan leads, so I need Denmark, but I made a very, very tiny bet on such, even smaller amongst these games in here. I got opinion plays on every single one, and I'm doing a small 3-game parlay. Not going to document it. But my opinion plays. First off, Sweden, Switzerland under 6.5 total goals, minus 129. I'm going to parlay that with Canada and Finland, also under the total, minus 6.5. Not too sure why. Interesting play. Czech Republic taking on the United States, and Finland's plus 225, and that's just a little too low. But what makes USA that much better than Czech? I think it should be a relatively close game. I'm all speculating. Should I play the Republic on the money line? But regardless of the fact, we got an over/under again at 6.5. These are totals that I think should be 5.5, and even then maybe favored to go under as well. Russia Slovakia is 5.5. It's favored to go over the total, but I think even going under that is good. So I got a 3-game parlay with this, and this, and at extremely, extremely small stakes compared to what I normally bet. For Thursday afternoon game, Minnesota at Toronto. This is an interesting game to say the least. Toronto with 1 day off. They have a record of 10 wins, 8 losses. With 2 days rest, they're 9-3, and with 3 days rest, which is the spot here, they're 3-0. Or they're basically 12-3 with at least 2 days off. This is a team doing much better than barely over 500, and they're winning with no days rest. They're 4-1 if they don't have any rest, losing that spot just a few days ago. They were 4-0 there. So that's something of interest of note. What does this 1 day rest have that makes it so difficult? Well, that's not a factor in this game. Minnesota does have 1 day rest. They're 7-14, and they are 10-7 with either more or no rest, or every other spot than that. So that makes me lean really heavily towards the Toronto Maple Leafs. How do I not back Toronto coming off a winning streak end, as they had a big win and then they lost in a spot where there was a difficult challenge and they lost? Currently, I see Toronto's at plus 129 for the puck line, which is an early line, juiced. And what that means is when tomorrow morning, late tonight, the odds will get better. So the average line is minus 110 when it's not. When it's juiced, it's minus 120. 8 of the 12 Toronto wins are by 2 or more goals, which means 8 of 19 in total. Minnesota has won 1 of their last 6 games, being outscored 19-10. Sparks will be a net for Toronto, and Sparks is statistically showing you why he's very inconsistent. In 9 starts, he has the following goals allowed. In 3 of them, he's allowed 1 or even got the shutout. He's allowed 2 goals once, and he has yet to allow 3 goals, which means that he doesn't play average games. He either lets in a lot. He's allowed 5 of his 9 starts. He's allowed 4 goals or more, as Frederik Andersen is injured for this game. So it makes it difficult knowing Sparks is going to be behind the net when you have an amazing spot to back Toronto. This opens up plays, though, to over 6 goals, or take advantage of a huge price on 7 or 7.5. Like seeing 8 goals scored in a Toronto game, that's not that unsurprising. And if I'm getting one of those prices that I like in the plus 240, plus 260 kind of range, something I'm definitely going to be looking at. Carolina, Philly, I couldn't find anything. Calgary or Boston. Calgary will be a little tired, but they're good as they're playing tonight. Boston playing well enough right now, and they're playing well enough right now. So Calgary's playing well. Boston's playing well. Boston, they're not a dreaded 1 day off team. That's what's been the case with some of them. They've got 1 day off for this game, but I don't really see anything there I'd like to bet. Florida Buffalo. Florida's got a 9-11 record on the road. Florida is 4-1 and 6-2 lately, but only 2 of those 6 wins by 2 goals or more. Florida has got a 6-6 record in overtime, which means they're 500. Buffalo has lost 3 consecutive games. They've also lost 5 of the last 6, being outscored 17-10. So they've only scored 10 in 6 games, which means they're averaging under 2 goals a game, and they're averaging allowed still under 3, and they're only got 1 win. Buffalo's got an 8-6 record in overtime. And all 14 overtime games Buffalo has played have occurred in the last 30. For the first few weeks, they didn't play an overtime game, but they've played a lot since. They're offering plus 271 right now for a draw game to go to overtime. And when I do 1 divided by 3.71, I get around 27%, which means that's your break-even probability. And it might be higher than that. Teams that are used to going to overtime, lower scoring teams. Florida's not as much, but they're not a high powered offense like the Toronto, Montreal, definitely Tampa, kind of Ottawa kind of teams. Hopefully they'll get a better line on game day, but this is the 3rd matchup of the year, and they've already played in overtime once already, so I think this is just a good price that I'll be looking for. I might take the draw in the Florida-Buffalo matchup. Vancouver at Montreal, double fade spot. Vancouver's on what I call the 2-3-4-R system, and that's when you play 2 games in a row, which is what the 2 stands for. And you're also playing 3 games in 4 nights, and all of them, which is the R, is on the road. Whenever this happens, the home team is usually the play. Montreal comes in with a record of 4-1 over the last 5, outscoring their opponents only 19-15. Montreal's off a 6-game road trip from December 19th through December the 31st. And they only have 1 day off. Something I don't like to do in basketball or hockey is when a team comes off a large, long road trip to actually play them. So I don't want to play on this game. Chicago's playing against the New York Islanders, and I hope Delia is not starting for Chicago, but something I want to watch for. The Islanders are hot right now. They have won 4 consecutive games as well as 7 of the last 8, outscoring their opponents by more than double, 29-14 over the last 2 games. 6 of the last 6 Islander wins are by 2 goals or more, 8 of 15 before that. Chicago, 17 of 27 losses this season by 2 goals or more, plus the last 3. And the New York Islanders minus goal and a half price is in at 159 right now. And again, this is on a juice line. But, I mean, the odds could go big time. You might not get a much better one as it moves on. But I'm going to be waiting until tomorrow. But I definitely want to see Cam Ward starting on that net to go against the Chicago Blackhawks. I can't see me wanting to back Delia against a team like the New York Islanders who are just... You don't want to get in front of them right now. Washington is taking on St. Louis. Washington has a better road record than they do at home, and St. Louis's record at home and road is pretty much equal. Washington just had a 4-game winning streak snapped, and they have won 9 of their last 11 games, outscoring their opponents 40-24. St. Louis has pretty much been consistently bad all year long. St. Louis, 5 of the last 16 games, they have allowed 6 or more goals, but they've managed to have 4 of their last 6 with 2 or fewer goals. Washington will have 1 day rest. They got a 12-7 record in what has been a dreaded spot for some teams. St. Louis on 1 day rest are 7-6. St. Louis is on 1 day rest rather, and they are 7-6 with 2 days plus rest, which means they're a bad team and they got a winning record when they have more rest. But they're 8-12 with 1 day rest, so Washington should steamroll this game. And I don't see how I do not play Washington laying a goal and a half at such a price like this. Whenever you got a team that good at that kind of price. I wish I had that price with Tampa Bay against LA. One game doesn't kill the overrun. Tampa Bay had an under last time. But when you look at the mathematics upon it, Tampa Bay has 6 straight wins. They've outscored their opponents 30-20. So there's been 50 goals in the last 6 games for Tampa. But it goes over even a longer stretch. Over the last 15 games, Tampa Bay has a 14-1 record, and that was an overtime loss too. They have won 15 consecutive games, not trailing after 3. They have outscored their opponent 75-46, which is an average of over 8 goals a game as it is. Tampa Bay, 6 of the last 7 games with 5 or fewer goals. Let me just try 5 or more goals. 6. No, LA. Excuse me. Yes, never mind. I'm thinking Tampa Bay. Los Angeles, 6 of the last 7 games. The over under has went under the 5.5. That's what that means. LA hasn't scored 5 goals in a game since December the 8th. And if there was ever a time to like a high juiced money line, Tampa Bay's like minus 200 and something. I mean, really, at minus 300, you have to be right 3/4 of the time, 75%. And it's less than that at minus 220, minus 230. However, I mean, they're probably much higher of a percentage like that. Laying 1.5, I still think seems safe, which is probably what I do. But they have a 6 total. So that's probably what I'm going to do is look most towards going over the total and the Tampa Bay game. So that is the card for tomorrow, what I'll be looking at. Most likely, there's not going to be too many plays again, but the Washington one seems like that's one of the more safer and better plays of the night so far. So thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye bye.